One of my viewers, Mike, has asked me to do a comparison between the RX350h base model in Canada to the NX450h Plus base model. Some may think this is comparing apples to oranges. They are in a different class and different type of vehicle as well. I'm totally aware of this, and I'll explain more why we're doing this. Hey, it's LSFD here today, and today I'm here to respond to one of my viewers on a comparison between the NX and RX and provide my opinion on which one I would prefer under his conditions. As noted in the introduction, many would say that this comparison is not valid. It's not a like-for-like comparison. I totally agree that they aren't the same class of vehicle, but I do think that this comparison is common, especially if you currently own an RX and due to high insurance costs and you want a Lexus so you opt for the NX, or you no longer need the space and would like to downsize to an NX. I do know some owners who have actually changed from the RX to the NX. Some hate it, some say they're good with it and they love their vehicle. And at the end, it's all preference. And you should actually go and test drive it before making up your decision. So for Mike, who reached out to me, said that the reason why he's looking for this comparison is because the Government of Canada, the IZEF rebate program, has added additional funding for 2024. And based on the amount of the incentives that are being paid out, he would think that by next March, there won't be any more rebates. And that totally could be true. So I'm assuming that he's still waiting for the NX and it probably would have arrived sometime in 2025. And since the RX350h base model, the hybrid, and the NX450h Plus base model is around the same price, so Mike is looking at this as a plan B. So here we look at pricing. So the first one on the left side, $73,664.79, that is the RX base hybrid. And in the middle, we have $71,562. That is actually without rebate, the NX450h Plus Ultra Premium, which is the base 450h Plus. And then the last one is $66,562, and that one is with the rebate of the federal government rebate. So you can see that even without the rebate, it's $71,500. It's still cheaper than the RX. So from a pricing standpoint, it still seems that without the rebate, the NX is still the better option. But again, it depends on your needs. So sometimes pricing is not everything, right? But because when you look at it, you also need to see the car meets your needs. One of it is really size. Some people don't like driving huge vehicles. Some actually like to drive a nimble, small vehicle. So when you look at the RX versus the NX, you're really looking at 40 millimeters of height difference, which means the RX is a little bit higher. The wheelbase is 6.3 inches or 160 millimeters longer, so meaning you have way more second row space in the RX. And even the overall length, it's 9.1 inches, 231 millimeters longer. So if you're not comfortable driving a longer car, that might be a problem. But then if you're used to it, that may not be a problem. But then that becomes, do you really need the space? Like, is the NX space good enough, or you actually need more? But because Mike has actually looked at the NX first, I think that the space is not a problem for him because it's all there. He would have decided that the RX is probably the better one. The RX 450h Plus might have been the better vehicle already. But now when you look at it, the size difference, I would say depends on your needs. But if Mike thinks that the NX was okay up front, I think the NX still is a better option, just looking at the length and wheelbase. So after talking about how long the vehicle is and how much space you have, now we're going to be looking at the width of it. So the width, if you look at it, the overall width, the RX is 2.2 inches wider. So definitely if you live in a place where you have small place to park, the NX probably better. But from a comfort standpoint, you do get 2.2 more inches. And then from the front track, meaning the front side of the vehicle, it's 1.9 inches, but the rear is actually 2.5 inches wider. So you definitely could see some differences trying to park into the parking spot, and also overall the RX is a larger vehicle. So after talking about the exterior dimensions, let's now look into the interior. So from the front side, if you look at the hip room, it's about 0.4 inches wider in the RX, and the rear gets 3.4. So if you do have definitely people sit in the back, the RX definitely will be more comfortable. And you look at the front, it's the shoulder room is about 1.8 inches longer, wider in the RX, and then 2.5 in the rear. So again, if your build is much bigger, then the RX definitely would be more comfortable. But if you're like a slimmer type, then it wouldn't matter as much. So overall, definitely, we all know that the RX is bigger and wider, but you have the numbers here to back it up. And definitely, you can see that the rear seats comfort is much better on the RX versus the NX. Next thing when you look at it is how tall are you when you sit down, and are you going to hit your head onto the ceiling or not. So the front headroom, the RX does have 1.1 inches more, but the legroom is only 0.1, so not that big of a difference there. The rear is also 1.1 inches, so overall it's 1.1 inch more. So if you're 5'9" versus 5'10", maybe that will make a difference. Legroom in the rear, 1.3 more inches, which is definitely way more space. Overall, when you look at it, again, you really need to sit in the cars to really see if you can fit in them or not, because some people who are 6 foot, and I can tell you a lot of YouTube reviewers are like 6'5" or whatever, they definitely won't fit. You'll have to see how tall you are to really see if this is going to work for you or not. Next thing we look at is the cargo space. So definitely we all know that the RX is a bigger vehicle, right? So when you look at it, second row up, meaning when you have all 5 seats available for someone to sit in, it's actually 195 liters bigger. It has 6.9 more cubic feet, which is great. You can put more stuff in the back. But when you put the rear seats down, I'm surprised. I was confused because it said the NX actually has 20 liters more room, 0.7 cubic feet more. I'm not sure why that's the case, but that is what the numbers come in. Next is turning circle. So meaning when you actually want to do like a total U-turn, how much space do you really need? So the two vehicles are very close. The RX is actually 1.1 meter or 0.4 feet more. You need more to actually turn that circle. So the NX will be easier to move around, especially if you need to make a U-turn. But then if you do look at the RX500h, it's rated at 5.4 meters, which is like 0.4 meters shorter than the NX. So definitely depending which model, but we're looking at the 350h here. So definitely the NX is a little bit more nimble. The RX needs a little bit more space. So when you look at the weight of the vehicles, people say that batteries are heavy, right? So the 18.1 kilowatt battery versus 1.7, that's a lot more. Like that's like 10 times more weight, right? But when you look at the RX and the NX, so the RX350h curb weight is 2,010 kilograms versus NX450h Plus is 1,990 kilograms. So that's about 20 kilograms lighter. The NX is 20 kilograms lighter than the RX. And even when you look at the gross vehicle with all the features and all that, you're talking about 70 kilograms lighter. So that battery, if without that battery, the NX is so much lighter, right? So when you look at it, that's why the 2.5 liter gas engine didn't make that big of a difference in the fuel area. So that's why when we look at it, sometimes, not always, the battery is the heaviest, but the battery does help the center of gravity when you drive the vehicles. Follow me on Instagram at LSFTvideos. You can see updates on my experience with the NX450h Plus, which may not be shown on any future videos. You can reach out to me via direct messaging if you have any questions on your Lexus. If you like this video, you can provide me feedback in the comments below, like this video, share it with your friends. This definitely will help with the YouTube algorithms. Press the subscribe button and bell icon and get notified when new videos show up. And lastly, If you want to support me further, you can provide me a super thanks, or visit my Amazon storefront before you purchase anything from Amazon, and or you can purchase products from the list on the items that I've been using with my vehicle or at home at no extra cost to you. And now let's continue with the video. We look at the mechanical side of the RX and the NX, and you can see here the NX450h Plus, because it's a plug-in hybrid, gets 60 kilometers of range, and total hybrid plus the ICE is about almost 900 kilometers range. And then when you look at it from a performance standpoint, 183 versus 181 engine-wise, but when you look at the system total output, 246 horsepower versus 304, definitely the NX is going to be more faster and more nimble. But then when you look at the torque numbers, the total torque of the engine, 233, they definitely down-tuned the NX450h Plus to 176. And then when you look at the total system torque, it's they did not disclose anything on the NX, but they're saying 316 pound-feet of torque total with the hybrid battery and the gas engine for the RX. I think that will be actually more on the NX, because when you look at it, they have a 200 pound-feet of torque front engine and 90 pound at the end plus 176. They don't disclose this information, so that's why it's hard to get, but I think if it's not more, it's about the same. Then you look at it, essentially it's the same gas engine that you have. One is a plug-in hybrid, one is a hybrid, and both recommend premium unleaded fuel. I would say if you plan to use regular fuel in the NX, you can use regular on the RX. No difference. You can see that there's 2 electric motors on the RX and 3 in the NX. The front suspension, exactly the same. The rear suspension is a little bit different. It's a multi-link on the RX and a double wishbone on the NX. So overall, I think you'll feel some suspension differences in the rear passengers, definitely when you drive over humps and stuff. And then when you look over here, it's a 19-inch wheels versus an 18-inch run flat. All right, so overall, when you look at it, they're very, very similar. Battery-wise, it's a 1.7 kilowatt hour battery for the RX. It's a nickel metal hydride battery versus a lithium ion on the 18.1 NX battery. And overall, the rest, I don't think there's that key to look at, but towing capacity, if towing capacity is an issue for you, the RX definitely can tow more, 1585 kilograms versus 907, so a 2,000 and 3,000 range. All right, so this is what we have from a mechanical. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so now we look at the RX and NX, the exterior features. Okay, so I'm going to be highlighting a few. It would not most likely be everything here. So when you look at the RX NX, you can see body material. There's some aluminum and galvanized steel versus the NX is full galvanized steel. I'm not sure. I thought the hoods were aluminum, so I'm not too sure about this. Grille, metal look, dark chrome, so not that big of a difference. Overall, when you look at here, everything seems to be very similar. Sunshade, it's a power sunshade. Manual, only the moonroof one where you have to manually close. So they're very, very similar vehicles, right? Because when you look at these comparisons, they're essentially feature-wise very similar. So when you look at the safety department, safety-wise, I would say when you look at here, everything is essentially the same. Even though they just say, oh, driver attention alert, there's no vehicle sway warning, I think RX has that. So there's some errors in some of the things, but overall, when you look at it, the RX does have rear parking sensors, but other than that, I think they are essentially the same. So in the warranty department, essentially it's like for like. Even the traction battery, 18.1 kilowatt battery in the 1.7, it's 10 years warranty, 240,000 kilometers. So looking at fuel economy, so the primary fuel is recommended is premium unleaded fuel, but again, it's recommended. You could use regular fuel, but again, it's the same for the both. So when you look at the fuel efficiency standpoint, 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers in the city for both, it's exactly the same. For the highway, the NX is actually using a little bit more gas, 7.1 versus 6.8. And then the combined is 6.5 versus 6.6. But then you have to keep in mind that you do have more range just driving pure EV. You do get about 60 kilometers average Summer months, you'll probably get 70 to 80. And in the winter months, you probably get high 40s to 50 kilometers. So just looking at that, if you drive daily with about 100 kilometers, even like at 100 kilometers, think of it as half of that is electricity. And then half of that is using the gas. So even that point, let's say 0.3 liters on the highway difference per 100, right? So if you drive 50 kilometers on the highway, you're really talking about 0.15 liters difference. But then the cost will be a lot less because you'll probably be using just like 3 liters of gasoline. Overall, you have to pay 6.8 liters of gasoline. So definitely cost of driving that 100 kilometers, the NX will be a little bit better in comparison to the RX. So now we look at the convenience, so more of the features. Okay, so we talk about the 350h base and the NX450h base. So when you look at here, like for like, I'll just stop at the ones where I see that there is a difference. So overall, you can see there's no difference yet. We still see here, overall, it's essentially the same. Steering wheel controls, dynamic cruise, home link, key fobs for all doors, no. So everything is the same up to here. So no difference from the convenience standpoint. So cruise control, power windows, keyless, and all that is the same. So the lighting, okay, so when you look at the lighting, like for like here, and we can see ambient lighting. RX says no, but NX actually has a single color, no heads-up display, and then essentially very similar. Infotainment, they both share the same infotainment, but if you look at it, the NX gets a 14-inch screen versus 9.8-inch on the RX. So that is a big difference. But then when you look at overall, speaker-wise, audio, 12 speaker versus the 10 speaker, both are the base model, no Mark Levinson. So if you do need, then it goes up all the way to the executive. USB, they say 6 USB ports. This is wrong here for the NX. They say there's only 4. As part of the 2025, they added 2 more, so there is 6 USB ports also on the NX as well. Drive Connect, they both get 3-year trials, and then you look at the real-time traffic weather, everything is part of it. So very similar again. The RX does get 2 extra speakers, doesn't get the 14-inch screen, it gets a 9.8. So definitely some differences, but very, very close. Typically, when someone comes to me and asks me for my recommendation on which vehicle to buy, my typical answer is never a straight answer like car A or car B. The reality is, you will have to go and test drive it yourself and really figure out which car meets your needs. And everybody has their own preference, needs, and wants. Some people would say that Lexus is a glorified Toyota, and maybe just buying a Toyota is just fine. For this comparison, because the pricing is so close, pricing is definitely not the parameter to look into. If there is a need for space, the RX is definitely the vehicle to own. For luxury, quietness, this one is going to be hard. The NX driving in pure EV is quite quiet, and when you need the gas engine, the RX is a tad ahead in this area. And then really, it all depends on how much you drive. How much you drive per day, the ratio between highway and city driving, both are hybrids, so definitely the NX will win if you drive less than 50 to 60 kilometers a day. Based on what I see, I would say for myself, the NX is the car that is worth the wait, with or without rebates. The car is still a little bit lower in price over the RX350h base model, and for my needs, the NX is still the choice, but I will miss the extra features that are found in the F-Sport 3 NX450h Plus. With that being said, I know that there will be other opinions and people would say the RX is the better car. I would like to hear from you. Leave it in comments below. Which one will you pick? I hope that you found that this video was informative, and until next video, drive safely. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please comment, like, share this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and press that bell icon to get notified when new videos are posted. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can provide me a super thanks. And until next time, cheers.